Welcome back, dear friends and story lovers. Tonight, we bring you a tale where love is tested, secrets come to light, and fate takes an unexpected turn. Every moment will pull you in deeper, and every choice could change everything. Tell us where you're watching from in the comments, and if this story touches your heart. Like, subscribe, share it with someone who believes in true love, and hit the bell so you never miss the next chapter. Asterisk, the champagne glass shattered against the marble floor of Nathaniel Hayes' penthouse, sending crystal fragments across the pristine white surface like scattered stars. Blood dripped from his knuckles where he had slammed his fist against the wall, but the physical pain was nothing compared to the rage burning through his chest. You what? His voice was deadly quiet, the kind of calm that preceded a storm. Catherine Wells stood in his living room, wearing the emerald dress he had bought her last month, her blonde hair perfectly styled despite the chaos she had just unleashed. In her manicured hands, she held a check for $2 million. I sold the Asian expansion plans to Morrison Industries, she repeated, her chin raised defiantly. They paid very well for the information. The Manhattan skyline glittered beyond the floor-to-ceiling windows. 30 floors below, but Nathaniel felt like he was falling through space. 3 years of his life, 3 years of believing in her, of planning a future, of thinking he had, finally found someone who loved him and not his fortune. We're supposed to be married in 6 weeks. The words scraped his throat raw. We're supposed to be married. Catherine's blue eyes held no remorse, only calculation. I never loved you. Nathaniel, I loved what you could give me. The lifestyle, the connections, the access to your company's secrets. You were so easy to read, so desperate to be loved, that you never questioned my motives. Each word was a blade sliding between his ribs. Get out. Gladly. Oh, and Nathaniel. She paused at the door, her smile cruel and beautiful. You'll never trust another woman again. I've made sure of that. The door closed with a soft click, leaving Nathaniel alone with the wreckage of his shattered engagement and the cold realization that Catherine was right. He would never trust again. 2 years later, you look like you'd rather be anywhere but here, James Whitmore said, appearing beside Nathaniel at the charity gala with 2 glasses of whiskey. Nathaniel accepted the drink but didn't sip it. Around them, New York's elite mingled in their designer gowns and tailored tuxedos there, laughter echoing off the vaulted ceilings of the Metropolitan Museum. These events serve their purpose. The foundation raised $3 million tonight. When was the last time you actually enjoyed yourself? James studied his friend's face, noting the lines of exhaustion around his steel-gray eyes. Really enjoyed yourself, not just went through the motions? I don't have time for enjoyment. The company requires my full attention. The company's running perfectly. You're using work to avoid living. James leaned against a marble pillar. You've been like this ever since, Catherine. Nathaniel's jaw tightened at the mention of his ex-fiancée's name. Catherine taught me valuable lessons about trust and women's true motivations. I won't make those mistakes again. You've turned into a machine, Nate. All logic, no heart. Because most women are calculating and manipulative, especially the ones in our social circle. James's eyes gleamed with mischief. That's where you're wrong. I believe any woman can become the perfect partner if she's with the right man who truly cares for her, even the most unlikely candidate. That sounds like romantic nonsense. Then let's test it. James pulled out his phone. I'll bet you $5 million that you can't take any woman I choose and turn her into perfect wife material within 3 months. Someone completely outside our world. The challenge stirred something competitive in Nathaniel that he thought Catherine had killed. What exactly would this involve? A marriage of convenience. You'll court her, marry her, and transform her into someone who could seamlessly fit into our social circle. If you succeed, I pay you $5 million. If you fail, you pay me. Nathaniel considered the proposition. It would be like any other business deal, complete with objectives and measurable outcomes. No emotions, just strategy. 3 months? 3 months. They shook hands, sealing the wager that would change everything. The next morning, James called with unusual excitement. I found her. Sophia Chen, 26 artist, struggling to make ends meet. She works part-time at Morrison's Gallery downtown and volunteers at the Children's Hospital on weekends. Nathaniel studied the photo James had sent. The young woman had expressive dark eyes and paint-stained fingers, holding a canvas with a smile that was genuine and unguarded in a way that seemed foreign to him after years in his world. She's beautiful, but she looks ordinary. Exactly. She's never been part of our world. Her father was a diplomat who died when she was 18, leaving her and her sister with nothing. She's independent, stubborn, and has turned down 3 marriage proposals from wealthy men because she believes in love. Perfect. A romantic idealist. Nathaniel felt the familiar coldness settle over his heart like armor. She'll be easy to manipulate. But as he stared at Sophia's photograph, something flickered in his chest. Something that felt dangerously like curiosity. 2 hours later, Nathaniel stood outside Morrison's Gallery, watching Sophia through the window as she explained a painting to a young couple. Her passion was evident in every gesture, every word. When the couple left without buying anything, he saw her shoulders slump before she straightened them with quiet determination. There was strength there, hidden beneath her gentle exterior, strength he hadn't expected. He entered the gallery, and when Sophia turned toward him with a professional smile that faltered slightly upon seeing him, Nathaniel felt the ground shift beneath his feet in a way that had nothing to do with the wager and everything to do with the woman standing before him. "Good afternoon. Can I help you find something?" Sophia's voice was warm honey over steel, professional yet genuine in a way that caught Nathaniel off guard. She wore a simple blue dress that had seen better days and worn leather boots that told stories of long walks through the city. Her long black hair fell loosely around her shoulders, and there were traces of paint under her fingernails that she hadn't quite scrubbed away. Everything about her was real, in a world where Nathaniel had grown accustomed to artifice. "I'm interested. In original pieces, something unique." He stepped closer, noting how she didn't flinch or flutter like most women did when they recognized him. "What type of art speaks to you?" "Not sure. I usually buy based on investment potential, but today, I want something different." Sophia's expression shifted to one of genuine interest. And for the first time in months, the practiced smile reached her eyes. "Then let's forget about money and focus on what moves you." She led him through the gallery, explaining each piece, not in terms of market value, but in terms of emotion and story. Nathaniel found himself drawn into her perspective, the way she saw art as a bridge between souls rather than a commodity to be traded. "This one," she said, stopping before a painting of a storm over the ocean, represents hope during chaos. The artist painted it during the worst period of his life, but see how there's light breaking through the clouds? "It's beautiful," he said, and meant it. "You sound surprised." "I am. I don't usually notice beauty in art." "Then you haven't been looking at the right art." Their eyes met, and for a moment something passed between them, something real and unexpected, that had nothing to do with his carefully planned manipulation. "Have dinner with me tonight," he said, the words escaping before he could stop them. "I don't even know your name." "Nathaniel Hayes." Recognition dawned in her eyes, followed immediately by wariness. "The tech billionaire." "You want to have dinner with someone like me?" The question was asked without self-pity, just honest curiosity. And it hit him harder than Catherine's calculated cruelty ever had. "Because you're the first person in years to make me see something I'd missed." That evening, Nathaniel took Sophia to Aurelius, one of Manhattan's most exclusive restaurants. She arrived wearing a simple black dress that somehow looked elegant, despite its obvious inexpensiveness, and though she seemed nervous, she wasn't intimidated. "I've never been somewhere like this," she admitted, as they were seated at a private table overlooking the city. "What do you usually do for dinner?" "Cook?" "At home, usually pasta or stir-fry. Sometimes my sister Alina and I try new recipes we find online." Her honesty was refreshing after years of women who pretended to be whatever they thought he wanted. "Tell me about your art." Sophia's eyes lit up with the same passion he'd seen in the gallery. "I paint emotions mostly, feelings that people can't put into words. My father always said art was humanity's way of sharing souls." "Your father was a diplomat?" "Yes, until he died in a car accident 8 years ago. He believed in building bridges between people, finding common ground. I try to Do the same with my paintings. Nathaniel found himself drawn into her stories, her genuine laugh, the way she gestured with her hands when excited. She asked him thoughtful questions about his work. But she also asked about his dreams, his fears, things no one ever bothered to explore. What do you want out of life? She asked over dessert. The question caught him off guard. Success, security, control. But what do you want for yourself? Not your company or your image, but you. He stared at her, unable to answer. When had he stopped thinking about personal happiness? When had his entire existence become about proving himself worthy of love that never came? I don't know anymore. Then maybe it's time to figure that out. As he drove her home to her modest apartment in Brooklyn, Nathaniel realized the evening had been the most genuine human connection he'd experienced in years. For the first time since accepting James's bet, he felt a twinge of uncertainty about what he was doing. Thank you for tonight, Sophia said as they reached her building. I had a wonderful time. So did I have dinner with me tomorrow? I'd like that. After she went inside, Nathaniel sat in his car for several minutes, processing what had just happened. This was supposed to be a calculated maneuver, a business transaction designed to prove that love was just another commodity to be bought and sold. But looking up at Sophia's lit window 4 stories up, he felt something he hadn't experienced. In years, real interest in another human being that had nothing to do with what they could do for him, and everything to do with who they were. As he drove back to Manhattan, Nathaniel told himself it was just part of the strategy. Getting to know her was necessary to transform her effectively. But deep down, a voice he'd been ignoring for years whispered that maybe James was right. Maybe he had become too much of a machine. Maybe Sophia Chen was about to teach him something he'd forgotten how to do. Maybe she was about to teach him how to feel again. His phone buzzed with a text from James. How did it go? Nathaniel stared at the message for a long moment before typing back. Phase 1 complete. But as he pulled into his parking garage, he couldn't shake the feeling that the real gamble wasn't $5 million. The real gamble was his carefully guarded heart, and for the first time in 2 years, someone had managed to find a crack in his armor. 3 weeks had passed like a beautiful dream that Sophia was afraid to wake up from. Dinners at restaurants she couldn't pronounce the names of. Art gallery openings where Nathaniel introduced her to collectors and artists she'd only read about. Long walks through Central Park, where he listened to her thoughts with an intensity that made her feel like the most fascinating person in the world. But she also noticed the walls he kept around his heart. The way he sometimes retreated into himself during their conversations. And the careful way he watched her reactions as if cataloging them for later use. You're falling for him, Alina, said one evening as they shared takeout in their cramped apartment. At 24, Sophia's younger sister worked double shifts as an ER nurse, and had always been the practical one between them. It's complicated, Sophia replied, twirling noodles around her fork while avoiding her sister's knowing gaze. Rich men aren't like us, Soph. They live in a different world with different rules. What do you really know about them? The question haunted Sophia because the answer was not enough. Nathaniel had shared pieces of himself, glimpses of the man beneath the billionaire facade, but there were still shadows in his past he wouldn't let her illuminate. Her phone buzzed with a text that made her heart skip. Can you meet me at the gallery tomorrow evening? Have something important to discuss. The next day, Sophia arrived at Morrison's gallery, after closing time, to find it transformed. Candles flickered throughout the space, casting warm light on the artwork and filling the air with the scent of jasmine. Nathaniel stood near the painting that had brought them together, wearing a dark suit that emphasized his tall frame and sharp features. What's all this? She asked, her heart racing with a mixture of excitement and unease. Sophia. His voice was unusually formal, and she caught something in his expression that looked almost like regret. These past weeks have been unexpected. You've shown me things I'd forgotten existed, Nathaniel. You're scaring me. What's wrong? He took her hands in his, and she could feel them trembling slightly, which terrified her more than anything else, because Nathaniel Hayes never trembled. He was always in control, always 3 steps ahead of everyone else. I want to ask you something that might sound crazy, but I need you to hear me out completely before you answer. Okay. Marry me. The words hung in the air between them. Like a challenge? Sophia stared at him, certain she'd misheard. The candlelight flickered across his face, highlighting the sharp angles of his cheekbones and the desperate intensity in his steel-gray eyes. "What did you say?" "I know how it sounds. We've only known each other 3 weeks, but I've never felt this way about anyone." The lie came easier than he'd expected, even as part of him wondered if it wasn't entirely a lie anymore. "Nathaniel, this is insane. People don't get married after 3 weeks. My parents got engaged after 2 weeks, and were married for 37 years until my father died. Sometimes you just know." Sophia pulled her hands free, pacing between the candles, her mind reeling. "But we're so different. You're a billionaire and I can barely pay my rent. I don't know how to navigate your world. These fancy restaurants and galas, that's not me. It could be. I could teach you." Something in his tone made her stop pacing. A coolness that sent ice through her veins. "Teach me what?" "How to be comfortable at charity events? How to speak with investors and board members. You have natural grace, Sophia. You just need polish." The word polish hit her like a physical blow. "You want to change me? I want to help you reach your potential. There's a difference." "There, because it sounds like you think I'm not good enough as I am." Tears started forming in her eyes, and she hated herself for the weakness. Nathaniel stepped closer, his expression softening. But there was something calculating behind his eyes that made her stomach churn. "That's not what I meant." "Then what did you mean? Because from where I'm standing, it sounds like you want a project, not a wife. Someone you can mold into your perfect accessory." "You're overreacting, am I? Tell me something, Nathaniel. What happens if I can't be polished? What happens if I embarrass you at one of your precious galas? Do you trade me in for a newer model?" The silence stretched between them like a chasm. In that silence, Sophia heard her answer, "I need to go." She moved toward the door, but he caught her wrist. "Sophia, please, don't leave like this." She turned back to face him, and for a moment, she saw something vulnerable in his expression, something that looked like genuine fear. But then his mask slipped back into place, and she saw the truth he'd been hiding. "You don't love me," she said quietly. "You love the idea of what you could turn me into? That's not true, isn't it?" She pulled her wrist from his grasp. "I grew up around diplomats, Nathaniel. I know how to read people, and I know when I'm being manipulated. The question is, what are you really after?" For a heartbeat, she thought he might tell her the truth. His mouth opened, and she saw the internal war playing out across his features. Then his walls slammed back up, and the moment was lost. "I'm after you, Sophia. Only you." But even as he said the words, they both knew it was a lie. Sophia walked toward the door, pausing only to look back at him one more time. In the candlelight, surrounded by art that spoke of human emotion and connection, Nathaniel Hayes looked like the loneliest man in the world. "When you figure out what you really want," she said softly, "call me. But until then, don't contact me again." The door closed behind her with a soft click, leaving Nathaniel alone with the candles and the crushing realization that somewhere in the past 3 weeks, the bet had stopped being about money and started being about something infinitely more dangerous. His phone buzzed with a text from James. "How's the project going?" Nathaniel stared at the message, then at the painting where he'd first seen Sophia's passion for art, for life, for everything real and beautiful that his world had forgotten how to value. He typed back, "Complication." Candles one by one watching the gallery return to darkness, Nathaniel knew that Sophia Chen wasn't just a complication. She was the first real thing to happen to him in years, and he was about to lose her because he was too much of a coward to choose her over his pride. 2 weeks of silence felt like a lifetime. Nathaniel threw himself into work with a vengeance that worried even his most dedicated employees. Staying in his office until dawn and sleeping in the penthouse suite he kept on the top floor of his building, but no amount of corporate maneuvering could silence the voice in his head that sounded suspiciously like, "Sophia, Sophia," asking him what he really wanted. James found him there on a Friday night, surrounded by empty coffee cups and financial reports that made no sense because Nathaniel couldn't focus on anything except the memory of dark eyes filled with disappointed tears. "You look like hell," James said, settling into the leather chair across from Nathaniel's desk. "The Asian expansion is ahead of schedule. We'll launch 6 months early. Not here about work and you know it. When was the last time you ate?" or slept in an actual bed. Nathaniel finally looked up from his laptop, and James was shocked by what he saw. His friend had always been controlled, calculating, but now he looked haunted. Broken in a way that James had only seen once before, right after Catherine's betrayal. She walked away, Nathaniel said simply. Maybe she's smarter than we gave her credit for. What's that supposed to mean? James leaned forward, his expression serious. It means maybe she saw through your act because you weren't acting anymore. Maybe she walked away because she could tell you were falling for her, and it scared the hell out of you. This was never about falling for anyone. This was about winning a bet. Was it? Da. Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you've forgotten. All about the bet and fallen in love with a woman who's too good for the game we're playing. The words hit Nathaniel like a physical blow because they were true. Somewhere between their first dinner and her walking away from him in that candlelit gallery, Sophia had stopped being a challenge and started being the most important person in his world. It doesn't matter now. She's gone. Then go get her back. Tell her what? That everything between us started as a lie? That I pursued her because of a bet? That I planned to manipulate and change her? Nathaniel's voice cracked on the last words. She'd never forgive me. Maybe she would if she knew how you really feel. But even as James said it, they both knew it was too late for honesty. The foundation of lies was too deep, the betrayal too complete. Nathaniel's phone rang, interrupting the heavy silence. The caller ID showed Sophia's name and his heart stopped. Sophia?
Out.
Don't talk, just listen. Her voice was shaking with an emotion he couldn't identify. I need to see you, tonight. Come to my apartment. Sophia, what's wrong? Just come. And Nathaniel, bring your friend James. The line went dead, leaving Nathaniel staring at his phone with growing dread. Something in her voice had been wrong. It's broken in a way that made his blood run cold. An hour later, they stood outside Sophia's apartment building. The neighborhood looked different at night, more dangerous, and Nathaniel felt exposed in his expensive suit. They climbed 4 flights of stairs in silence, each step feeling like a march to execution. Sophia opened the door before they could knock, as if she'd been watching from the window. She looked like she'd been crying, her eyes red-rimmed and her face pale. Behind her, Alina sat at the small kitchen table with a laptop open, her expression murderous. Come in, Sophia said quietly. Both of you. They entered the cramped apartment, and Nathaniel felt the walls closing in around him. On the laptop screen, he could see what looked like financial records, spreadsheets with numbers that made his stomach drop. Alina works nights at the hospital, Sophia began, her voice eerily calm. She has access to all kinds of databases, including ones that track large financial transactions, especially gambling debts and unusual bets between wealthy individuals. James went very still beside him, and Nathaniel felt the world tilt on. It's Axis. She was curious about you, about us, so she did some digging. Imagine her surprise when she found records of a $5 million wager between Nathaniel Hayes and James Whitmore, to bet about transforming some poor, naive girl into perfect wife material within 3 months. The silence that followed was deafening. Nathaniel watched Sophia's face, searching for any sign of the woman who had laughed at his stories and challenged his assumptions about art and life and love. But all he saw was cold emptiness, the kind of emptiness he recognized because it had lived in his own heart for so long. Sophia, I can explain. Can you? Can you explain how every moment we shared was calculated? Every dinner, every kiss, every time you made me believe that someone like you could actually care about someone like me? It wasn't like that, wasn't it? She turned to James, her voice like ice. Tell me, was I easy to manipulate? Did I perform according to your expectations? James had the grace to look ashamed. Sophia, it started as a bet, but nothing. She turned back to Nathaniel, and he saw something die in her eyes, something beautiful and trusting that he had killed with. His lies? You want to know the truly pathetic part? I was going to say yes. What? When you proposed? I spent 2 weeks thinking about it, and I was going to say yes. Not because of your money or your world, but because I thought I saw something real in you. I thought you needed someone to love you for who you actually are, not what you've accomplished. Word was a knife twisting in his chest. Sophia, please.
Oh.
Let me explain. There's nothing to explain. You made a bet that you could buy a woman's love and transform her into your perfect trophy wife. Congratulations, you almost won. I almost let you polish away everything that made me who I am. That's not what I wanted, isn't it? 'Cause from where I'm standing, it looks like you got exactly what you paid for. A naive girl stupid enough to believe in fairy tales. Nathaniel stepped toward her, but she moved away, and the rejection cut deeper than any physical blow. I need you both to leave. Now, Sophia, I get out. The scream tore from her throat like a wounded animal, and Nathaniel saw the exact moment her heart shattered completely. Get out and don't ever contact me again. The bet's over. You lose. Left without another word, walking down the stairs in crushing silence. On the street, James finally spoke. We have to tell her the truth, that you fell in love with her. No, Nathaniel said quietly. We've done enough damage. She deserves better than the truth. She deserves better than us. But as he walked away from Sophia's building, leaving behind the first real love he'd ever known, Nathaniel realized that the $5 million had never been the real stakes. The real bet had been his heart, and he'd lost it completely to a woman who would never forgive him for the lies that brought them together. Behind her apartment window, Sophia watched him disappear into the night, pressing her hand against the glass as if she could somehow reach through it and take back every moment that had led them to this devastating end. 6 months later, Nathaniel stood in the same gallery where everything had begun and ended, staring at a painting that hadn't been there before. The placard read Storm's End by S. Chen, and the price tag showed numbers that made him proud and heartbroken at the same time. The painting was raw, devastating. Dark blues and grays swirled around a figure caught in a tempest. But unlike her earlier work, this one had no light breaking through the clouds. It was pain made visible, betrayal given form and color. She's talented, said a voice behind him. Tragic that she's leaving New York. Nathaniel turned to find the gallery owner, an elderly man named Marcus, who had been kind to Sophia when she'd worked there. Leaving, didn't you know? She's been accepted to an art residency in Paris. Full scholarship, all expenses paid. She leaves tomorrow. Marcus studied Nathaniel's face with shrewd eyes. I thought you might want to know. The words hit him like a physical blow. Sophia was leaving, and he would never see her again. The thought of her being an ocean away, of never having the chance to make things right, was unbearable. Where is she now? I shouldn't tell you that. Please. The desperation in his voice surprised them both. I need to see her, just once. Marcus sighed, his expression softening slightly. The children's hospital. She's been volunteering there. Every day since you two. ... Double quotes. He trailed off delicately. She's saying goodbye to the kids today. Nathaniel ran from the gallery, his expensive shoes slipping on the wet pavement as he hailed a taxi. The ride to the hospital felt like an eternity, and with every passing block he rehearsed what he would say to her. But when he finally found her in the pediatric ward, surrounded by children with bright scarves covering their bald heads, all his planned words died in his throat. She was reading them a story, her voice animated and full of the warmth he remembered. But even from a distance, he could see the changes in her. She was thinner, shadows under her eyes speaking of sleepless nights. The light that had drawn him to her was still there, but it was dimmer now, tempered by the pain he had caused. Sophia looked up, and for a moment her face cycled through emotions. Surprise, pain, anger, and something else he couldn't identify. The children sensed the tension and quieted, watching the adult drama unfold with curious eyes. Need to speak with you, he said quietly. There's nothing to say, please. 5 minutes. She looked at the children, then back at him, and he saw her decision in the set of her shoulders. Sarah, can you finish the story for everyone? I'll be right back. One of the older girls nodded solemnly, taking the book as Sophia stood. Walked to a quiet corner of the ward, the antiseptic smell and soft beeping of machines providing a surreal backdrop for what might be their final conversation. Paris, he said simply. How did you? She shook her head. It doesn't matter. Yes. Paris, I leave tomorrow. Don't go. Why? So you can finish your experiment. When you're bet, the bet is over. Has been for months. I lost and I paid James the money. Good for you. I'm sure that was a learning experience. Her coldness was worse than anger would have. Ben and Nathaniel felt something desperate clawing at his chest. Sophia, I know you have no reason to believe me, but I need you to know something. I don't want to hear it. It started as a bet. You're right about that, and I will never forgive myself for it. But somewhere between our first dinner and that night in the gallery, it stopped being about proving a point and started being about falling in love with you. She flinched as if he'd struck her. Don't you dare. I love you. I loved you when I proposed. I loved you when you walked away, and I love you now. The bet, the manipulation, all of it was wrong, but what I feel for you is real. Tears started flowing down her cheeks, and she wiped them away angrily. You don't get to do this. You don't get to show up here and tell me you love me after what you did. I know I don't deserve forgiveness. I know I destroyed something beautiful because I was too scared and broken to recognize it. But I can't let you leave without knowing that you changed me. You made me remember what it felt like to be human. And what am I supposed to do with that information, Nathaniel? Forgive you? Come running back into your arms like some romantic movie? Her voice cracked with pain. You didn't just lie to me. You made me doubt myself, made me question my own worth. Do you have any idea what that did to me? He saw the truth of it in her eyes, the damage his deception had caused, and it nearly brought him to his knees. I'm so sorry, Sophia. If I could take it all back, but you can't. That's the thing about betrayal, Nathaniel. Can't apologize for it, but you can't undo it. They stood there in the hospital corridor, surrounded by the sounds of children's laughter from the ward behind them, and Nathaniel felt his last chance slipping away. But then he remembered something, a conversation from months ago. Your father, he said suddenly. What? Your father believed in building bridges, finding common ground. You told me that on our first date. Don't bring my father into this. He was a diplomat. He understood that sometimes peace requires sacrifice. That sometimes you have to choose forgiveness not because someone deserves it, but because holding on to anger destroys you. Sophia's eyes flashed with fury. Not asking you to forgive me for my sake. I'm asking you to forgive me for yours. Because the woman I fell in love with was full of light and hope and the belief that people could change. Don't let what I did take that away from you. You don't understand. I can't trust my own judgment anymore. If I could be so wrong about you, if I could be so easily manipulated, how can I ever trust my heart again? The vulnerability in her voice broke something open in Nathaniel's chest. Without thinking, he reached into his jacket and pulled out an envelope, pressing it into her hands. What is this? My resignation as CEO of Hayes Industries, effective immediately. I'm donating my entire personal fortune to establish the Chen Foundation for Arts Education. The only condition is that you run it. Sophia stared at the papers, her hands shaking. This is insane. This is your life's work. No, it isn't. Building walls around my heart was my life's work, and it nearly destroyed me. You were the only thing I've ever done that mattered. Nathaniel, I can't accept this. It's too much. It's not enough. It will never be enough to make up for what I did to you. But maybe it can be a start. Maybe it can prove that I'm capable of change, that the man you saw in me wasn't entirely an illusion. She looked up at him with tears streaming down her face. And for a moment he saw the woman who had made him believe in love again. Why are you doing this? 'Cause you deserve better than the world gave you. 'Cause you have a gift for seeing the light in dark places, and that gift should be protected. And because even if you never forgive me, even if you go to Paris and never come back, I want to know that somewhere in the world, you're creating beauty and helping others find their voices. The silence stretched between them, heavy with possibility and pain. Around them, the hospital continued its quiet work of healing, and Nathaniel wondered if some wounds were too deep to ever fully close. I still don't trust you, Sophia said. Finally, I don't know if I ever will again. I know. And I'm still going to Paris. I need time to figure out who I am when I'm not trying to please someone else or prove my worth. I understand. But maybe, she said, her voice barely above a whisper, maybe when I come back, we can try to build something new. not on the foundation of lies and manipulation, but on honesty, on choosing each other with our eyes wide open. Hope bloomed in Nathaniel's chest like spring after the longest winter. I'll wait, however long it takes. She stepped closer, close enough that he could smell her perfume, the same jasmine scent that had filled the gallery on the night he'd proposed. Don't wait for me, Nathaniel. Use this time to figure out who you are too. Become the man you want to be, not the man your past made you. And if I do that, if I become worthy of you, then maybe we'll find each other again. Maybe we'll get the love story we should have had from the beginning. She stood on her tiptoes and kissed his cheek, a gentle benediction that felt like forgiveness. And goodbye all at once. Then she walked back into the children's ward. Back to the light and laughter and hope that defined her, Nathaniel stood alone in the corridor for a long time, watching her through the window as she finished reading to the children. When she looked up and caught his eye, she didn't smile, but she didn't look away either. And in that moment of connection, he saw something that looked remarkably like possibility. 6 months later, Nathaniel received a postcard from Paris. On the front was a painting of the Seine at sunset, all golden light and reflected dreams. On the back, in Sophia's careful handwriting, were just 4 words: learning to trust again. He pinned it to the wall of his new office at the Chen Foundation, where he spent his days helping young artists find their voices and learning, slowly but surely, how to trust his own heart again. And sometimes, when the light hit the postcard just right, he could swear he saw their future reflected in those painted waters. 2 years later, when Sophia Chen returned to New York with a portfolio full of light and love and hard-won wisdom, she found a man waiting for her who had kept his promise. A man who had learned that the greatest bet he could ever make was on the possibility of redemption. The chance that love could survive even the deepest betrayal. If both people were willing to do the work of becoming worthy of it, their second. First kiss happened in the same gallery where they'd met, in front of a new painting she'd created in Paris. This one showed a storm clearing, light breaking through clouds, and 2 figures walking toward each other across a bridge of their own. Building. I love you, he said against her lips, the words carrying the weight of all his regret and all his hope. I love you too, she whispered back, the real you this time. And somewhere in the distance, thunder rumbled as the last storm clouds finally cleared, leaving only light, the end.